Okay, now let's see where we are here, friends. And I think Okay, friends, hi, and I'm going to start doing this again. This is the program 61. I had that feeling like I was about to make a recording in which there was no recording. So I just want to read a little bit before we begin. And let's see what it says here. Just as the rapport between the hierarchy and humanity is established via aspirants, disciples, and initiates in physical existence who are responding to the love wisdom of the universe in some measure, and who work via the intelligent people in incarnation primarily. So rapport between Shambhala and the hierarchy is being more closely established via the senior ashrams, such as that of KH and Moria and Master Hilarion and so forth, and not via the secondary ashrams. The question is, when do we know we've joined a secondary ashram? I think when we start to become a true hierarchical worker and are included, within the blue circle, so to speak. The red circle of Shambhala, the blue circle of hierarchy, the green circle of humanity. So we're on program 61 here, and I really have to do this again. You therefore have a situation which might be depicted somewhat as follows. The first planetary center is Shambhala, working through the 7 rays or 7 spirits before the throne. Now, are they members of the Council of the Lord of the World, or are they reflections of 7 sacred planets that are 7 spirits before the throne of the Solar Logos? Then there are certain great intermediaries, and maybe I'll read those a little bit from page 141 and 142 of the rays and the initiations, and then the council chamber of the Lord of the world. It looks like these are in descending order. So let's just see what we have here. I'm going to try to make a new well, that's not working. That's not working too well. I was rather hoping, okay, here we go. Let's see if I can read this. And let's see if I can make a new, yeah. Okay. So this is that important area where we're describing the council, the Great Council. And from what it says here, it looks like the 7 spirits before the throne of the planetary logos are within the Great Council. But from what we've just been seeing in the text we've been using from externalization, it looks like they are above. So now we're talking about entering isolated unity as a master. Okay, and I just want to kind of check this just to make sure. Going a little higher, when the initiate has passed through the 3 doors, symbolically speaking, he then faces all life, all events, all predeterminations, apparently there are those, all wisdom, all activity, and all that the future may hold of service and progress from the angle of the pure reason, which is found on the Buddhic plane, right? Infallible and immutable, of true spiritual will found on the Atmic plane, and completely identified with the purpose of the planetary logos and of the highest possible focused relation. It sounds like he's a master, or at least, at least a 4th degree initiate, but perhaps really a master. The mystery of relationship becomes revealed to him. Then the entire scheme of evolution and of the intention of the one in whom he lives and moves and has his being becomes clear to him. Well, clear to a certain point, because even the masters, even the Chohans, do not know the entire name or purpose of Sanat Kumara. He has no more to learn within this planetary scheme, and probably the Chohans do not either. And we think about knowledge, you know, mastership takes you to the Atmic plane, which is a mental plane, and a plane of learning in that respect. He has become universal in his attitude to all forms of life, so he includes them within himself, and is also identified with the isolated unity of Sanat Kumara, and true isolated unity begins at the 5th degree, and with a little anticipation of it at the 3rd degree, and a bit more at the 4th. Now we're talking about who it is that is higher than he is. And okay, there we go. I am screen sharing, so I have hope, you know. Few of the great lives who form the inner group of the council chamber of Shambhala are now of greater moment, of greater achievement than he. Let's see. What I basically want to do here. Yeah. So let's see if I can, yes, there we go. Okay. And this is the word none. So few of the great lives who form the inner group of the council chamber at Shambhala are now of greater achievement than he. The supernal 3, I imagine they are the 3 esoteric Buddhas. The radiant 7, I imagine they are the 7 spirits before the throne. The lives embodying the 49 fires of Brahma, but there are also 49 lesser ray lives and 49 spirits of darkness, finally. The Buddhas of activity, which are somewhat lower than the esoteric Buddhas, and yet they rotate. So a Buddha of activity can become an esoteric Buddha, and an esoteric Buddha can become a Buddha of activity. And certain eternal spirits, maybe these are the divine intermediaries from such centers of dynamic spiritual life as Sirius, or from the constellation which at any one time forms a triangle with our sun and Sirius. It kind of makes it look as if Sirius is a constellation. And there are a number of these constellations which are chakras within the one about whom naught may be said, and a representative from Venus are of greater, far greater advancement. So these may be the divine intermediaries. Otherwise, all initiates of the 6th degree and a few of the masters who have undergone specialized training, because they are upon the first ray of will or power, the ray conditioning Shambhala itself, form part of the Great Council. Many masters and Chohans, however, after serving upon the planet in various capacities, working with the law of evolution, pass out of our planetary life altogether. Okay, well, maybe that brings us some clarity. And let's see if I can bring this here. Yes, I'm still screen sharing. I get worried about that. So maybe we've just read out the names of some of these great intermediaries, such as those from Sirius or from a constellation which looks at our particular constellation and forms a triangle with Sirius, our constellation, or is it a solar system, and this other one, a triangle. And then the council chamber of the Lord. But what I've just read seems to include all of these in the council chamber of the Lord. So there is a little bit here, in my mind anyway, of uncertainty. And I would say we have to study page 141 and 142 in the rays and the initiations. Okay, now let's go on. I'll just repeat. The first planetary center is Shambhala, working through the 7 rays or the 7 spirits before the throne of the planetary logos. Certain great intermediaries, some of which I have read, and the council chamber of the Lord of the world itself. And yet on 142 and 141, it seemed to say that all those lives I was mentioning are part of the council chamber of the Lord of the world. Certainly the supernal 3, which I assume are the esoteric Buddhas, or esoteric Kumaras, maybe we call them, and the 3 Buddhas of activity, which are the exoteric Kumaras, though still very esoteric to us. Then there's the second planetary center, and this we call hierarchy, and it works through the 7 major Chohans and their ashrams, the 49 masters of the secondary ashrams, and not all those secondary ashrams are yet organized, constructed, and the sum total of the secondary ashrams. So here it looks like we're definitely moving in descending order, with number 3 being of less hierarchical status than number 1 under this Roman numeral 2. And then we have the third planetary center, humanity working through disciples in manifestation of the 7 ray types. And I'm assuming that these are soul types particularly, and not monadic types. And the new group of world servers that does have in its ranks some of these higher disciples, but generally those of the 2nd degree or slightly less, and then the sum total of humanitarians, educators, and men of goodwill. They may have taken the first initiation, but maybe not. It would seem, however, that they are very close. Okay, I hope that's clear, and I hope everything is recording as it should. Okay. Sometimes it's better to stop before you do an entire program with no recording whatsoever, which is, encourages the sense of futility to descend upon you. This is but a rough picture and one which is not totally correct. It will, however, show you certain direct lines of contact and of relationship which are true and which will suffice to give you a vague and general idea of the new alignment being set up between the three planetary centers requiring new adjustments. And sometimes we have seen that alignment, and we've seen Shambhala hierarchy and humanity in triangular form. I'm not going to go hunting for it right now, but we are given the past, the present, and the future, and the relationship between the three in the past, present, and future. In the future, everything will be a two-way street, and there will be reciprocity between all three of any triangle. At the present time, Shambhala is impacting humanity, and hierarchy is reaching out towards Shambhala. And there is a kind of a soul infusion also going on with humanity reaching towards hierarchy. But obviously we are in a state of incompleteness at this time. At this particular time, the emphasis of the needed alignments and adjustments with which the hierarchy is faced is being placed upon activity within the hierarchy itself. Now, we may not have realized that. We're so, centered in humanity that we don't realize that from a planetary perspective, the adjustments within hierarchy are more important than those that include humanity. The secondary ashrams are being stimulated. Now they're not even half done, really. They're not even half organized. The secondary ashrams are being stimulated. New ones are being gradually formed, for there are not as yet 49 minor ashrams. Vacancies in the major ashrams are being filled as rapidly as possible from the ranks of those working in minor ashrams, and the place of these latter are being taken by accepted disciples who are being fitted for this work through experience, difficulties, and the tension of world service. These are important statements, and it shows the upward evolutionary tendency of the hierarchical workers. What it is that's going on within hierarchy to fill out the full form which one day will characterize hierarchy. In the first ray ashram, I believe DK said there are no subsidiaries. And when you look at the sixth and the third, there are 3 and 4 subsidiaries, that kind of thing. And only the second ray ashram has all 7 at work. And one of them is a little bit inchoate. I wonder which it is. Maybe 2 sub 4, which will be filled out more fully when the 4th ray comes in from its monadic aspect. So the question about secondary ashrams, obviously Master DK's ashram is a secondary ashram, and yet he is rather fully employed and has 5 masters in his ashram. Now, is he 2 sub 2 or 2 sub 3? If we consider that Master Kuthumi as a Chohan is the director of all, that would be one thing. If we consider Kuthumi as the director of 2 sub 2, which overflows the other 6, that would be another way of working. If Master DK has 5 masters working in his ashram, then his position as 2 sub 2 would allow 5 masters under him to be within his ashram, as it were, and he would be subsidiary to Master KH. But there's no way to be, entirely certain of this. But I do believe that Master DK is a senior master within the second ray ashram, even though he has not for very long been a master. I think 1875 seems to be the time given, but sometimes it is said that 20 years before that he became a master. I just remember reading that just the other day. Anyway, there's a gradual formation. The vacancies are filled so that there can be a full flowering of contribution, which the second ray ashram is supposed to make, and all the others as well later and in their own time. The 6th ray ashram is interesting because so many 6th ray souls are going out of incarnation, but again, their time must come for a kind of re-entry and re-expression during the Aquarian age. Also, vacancies in the major ashrams, let's say Master Kuthumi's major second ray ashram, are being filled as rapidly as possible from the ranks of those working in minor ashrams. And it's not until quite a bit later in the evolutionary process that we can find ourselves actually working in a minor ashram. The tendency or the seed of the minor ashram, which will be our focus, is there, but we have to be of a certain status to be working there, and even more so in a major ashram like Master KH's. Now, some of the students of Master DK really belong to KH in eventuality, but they were working in a minor ashram, and their moment of transfer to KH's ashram was a major moment in their development. I'm thinking of RSU, Regina Keller, who at toward the end of the letters she received was notified that she was finding her place back in Master KH's ashram after assisting Master DK in a subsidiary ashram. So, and I think it had something to do with the second initiation. In other words, once the second initiation was taken, it appeared possible then to transfer into the ashram of a Chohan. Now, is that true only for the major second ray ashram, or is it true for all of them? There's something about that second initiation and the complete opening of the 6th petal, which allows greater hierarchical usefulness, and it allows the master actually as I understand it, to use the vehicle of the disciple, whether overshadowing or taking possession of it, and not before the second, not before the second degree is taken. And why might that be? Well, you know, the second degree involves the number 2 and 6, and 6 is and 2 are the monadic numbers, and the Chohans are found in relation to the numbers 2 and 6 on the monadic plane, 2 from above, 6 from below. So at that point, there's the right vibrational condition for the disciple to enter the monadic sphere of influence. That doesn't mean to reach the monad, but at least every Chohan who is the director of a major Ray ashram is a conscious monad. And so that when the reflection of the number 2 and 6 regarding the astral plane is achieved, then the reflection relates the individual disciple to the monadic sphere wherein the Chohan functions. I hope that's not all too complicated. It's my view of why it is that the second degree involving the number 2 and 6 does make it possible to relate to the Chohan of a Ray ashram. Now, all these changes, says DK, necessitate much adjustment. The interior work of hierarchical alignment is in the charge of the Chohans of the major ashrams. That is, you know, including, well, it depends on how you look at it, either 6 subsidiary or, as we've just read a little while ago, 7 subsidiary with 1 inclusive Ray ashram. Whilst the task of superintending the interior adjustments incident to new alignments and the admission of new personnel is being watched over and directed by the 49 ashrams who are in charge of minor ashrams, either ashrams with what is regarded as a full complement of workers, or ashrams in process of attaining that full complement, or embryo ashrams, of which there are already quite a few. This is somehow very important statement for understanding the hierarchical adjustments. I think it would be worth reading it again. All these changes necessitate much adjustment. The interior work of hierarchical alignment is in the charge of the Chohans of the major ashrams. So this would be aligning the entire ashram with the Christ and with Shambhala and with Sanat Kumara, whilst the task of superintending, supervising basically the interior adjustments incident to new alignments with Shambhala, let us say, and the admission of new personnel into the minor ashrams, right, is being watched over and directed by the 49 masters who are in charge of minor ashrams. And if we have 49, then 2 sub 2 would be in the charge of a lesser hierarchical worker, probably a master, than the Chohan KH. keeping our examples here in the second ray ashram. So basically, it's not so much that KH, he's deeply affiliated with 2 sub 2, but he is not only working in 2 sub 2. There does seem to be another master there, and who is that? Now DK has so much of the third ray, it's hard to say, and well, you know, one could turn to, let's see if I can get there. Let's see if I can get there. And yeah. This would be AAB diagrams and solar and planetary hierarchies. And I'm not sure. There is there is an English master above Master KH here, as you can see, but he, you know, he seems to have a higher position and would not be, he's in alignment with the Christ and KH. Maybe it's this Master Sir Thomas, the former Sir Thomas More, could be. But Master KH has as his immediate subsidiary Master DK. And then the question would be, would there be 7 more masters, of which DK would be 1? So that will have to, you know, remain for us just a little bit in the air, because sometimes I have felt, and maybe wrongly so, that Master KH is in charge of the 2 sub 2, but 2 sub 2 in a way includes the whole, and to manage the internal affairs of the specific 2 sub 2 would require, it looks like, another master. All right. So I'm hoping that that is clear. I'm hoping that that is clear. Certainly it's a bit clearer for me, because I was ranking the Chohans among the 7 for each ray ashram, and now it looks like there are 49 masters and 8 Chohan. It appears to be the case. So that will have to be corrected in the mind. It's hard to say how many times I have mentioned it, but the hypothesis should be that there are 49 masters in charge of the minor ashrams. Now, if Master DK really does have 5 masters in his ashram, so to speak, maybe he is the one in charge of 2 sub 2. And Master Kudhumi in charge of the entirety of the second ray ashram. However, Master DK has so much of the third ray in his makeup, just the way the Buddha does and did, that we would expect to find him affiliated with the third ray in some possible way. And so does that mean that one of the masters who's in charge of 2 sub 2 is not Master DK? So these are questions to be solved. Sometimes I say to myself, if we just know the question to be solved, we're going to get the answer. We have to write the correct questions and ponder them. All right. I know I've spoken too much on this subject, but it is a little bit intricate, and it does seem that there will be 49 plus the Chohans, which will make the whole thing 56. And if we add 7 more from some point of view, maybe the 3 esoteric Kumaras and the 3 exoteric Kumaras, or Buddhas of activity, plus Sanat Kumara, we will reach that important number, which is 63. Well, these are intra-hierarchical matters, not easily discerned by us. But maybe the important thing to realize is that it's all controlled by number, and there is regulation here, and we do bring order to our understanding through number. And maybe one of the important things is to try to find the subsidiary ashram with which you or I may be affiliated, and to work therein, and then to be absorbed at a certain point into the major Ray ashram of the Chohan. And would we still have some kind of expression in one of the 7? Well, we might. Those who follow the way of the Christ, pure and simple, the 2 sub 2 somehow. Those who follow the way of the Buddha, 2 sub 1. If we follow the way of Master DK, this is where the 3rd ray seems to come in, because in his great intellectuality and pure reason, he covers the correlation of a mass of detail. What we have received from him is only a limitation based upon Alice Bailey's capacity, and the capacity at the time he was writing to take down and put into, proper form some of what he knew. And obviously he knows a lot more than he's been able to give us because of Alice Bailey's limitations, even though she was certainly an initiate of the 3rd degree, and I would say, like Roberto Assagioli, working toward the 4th degree. These are my estimates. I'm sorry if this picture is distorting in a way. If I had a green backdrop behind me, then I wouldn't look quite so odd. But anyway, it's a combination of being able to talk to you directly, or at least to feel that I am doing that, and to look at the words which Master DK has written. Now in Externalization of the Hierarchy are some very important paragraphs about the inner hierarchical adjustments, which are occurring now, and certainly in a crescendo of activity as we approach the year 2025. One of the results of this hierarchical alignment, as the entire hierarchy reaches toward Shambhala, this hierarchical alignment and adjustment will be the establishment for the first time of a fluid interplay and movement between the three planetary centers. And as I said, when you have that diagram before you showing Shambhala hierarchy and humanity in the past, present, and future, you do see what he's talking about. And maybe, maybe I should make a little effort to see if I can do something here. Let's see, triangles. Triple triangles, yeah, okay. Okay, now let's see if the triple triangles, all right. Well, there they are. I hope you see them. The past, humanity reaching toward Shambhala. Hierarchy reaching toward humanity, Shambhala reaching toward hierarchy. The present, Shambhala impacting humanity, humanity reaching toward hierarchy, and hierarchy reaching toward Shambhala, and less far in that process than humanity reaching toward hierarchy. And the future, the two-way street, the mutual flow between every point in the triangle. So I'll leave this one out here because I think it's important. Okay. And resume. And what I see that I did incorrectly here is that let's see, triple triangle. Let's see if I can get that straight. Okay. No, that's not it. Oh my. Triplicity. Yes, there it is. There it is, and no. This is not, this is like official USR business for our conference. And that's not very good. Okay, well, let's see if anything is possible here. And let's see. I'm screen sharing and I'm not doing so very well with this. But okay. And this is okay, I'll just pause the recording. All right. I'm hoping now that this is showing. And please excuse the the difficulties that I seem to be having right now, at least you're seeing them at this time. I am sharing the screen. The past, present, and future. And notice in the present how far hierarchy is from Shambhala, in a way much farther than humanity is from hierarchy. And in the future, there will be a mutual interplay between all 3 points. And in the past, humanity reached towards Shambhala and hierarchy towards humanity. I think, that is an important thing to see. All right. Now, I'm going to hope. Yeah, all right. So let's see here. Okay. All right. My screen sharing has stopped, and I'm going to do my best to continue. All right. I've had nothing but trouble with this particular presentation, but I hope that as I go on, everything will be as clear as possible. Okay. Now, so one of the results of the hierarchical alignment and adjustment will be the establishment for the first time of a fluid interplay and movement between the 3 planetary centers, and that I showed you. Maybe I've shown it to you more than once, so some few minutes have been wasted here as I've been unsure of what I've shown you. Let's see here. Not making a lot of progress, but some anyway. Chohans are today passing out of the hierarchy into the council chamber of the Lord of the world. Or if that is, if they choose the path of earth service, or are designated by Sanat Kumara as rightly choosing the path of earth service. They are tapped to serve on the planet, and of course, being occultly obedient, they do not deny, and they register their later choice with him while they remain serving on the path of earth service with him in relation to Shambhala. So Chohans are today passing out of the hierarchy into the council chamber of the Lord of the world, or onto one of the 7 paths. Now there are 9 paths, we know, but the other 2 that are added to the 7 are not given. Senior masters in charge of ashrams are taking higher grades of initiation and taking the rank of Chohans. Initiates above the 3rd degree are rapidly taking the 4th and 5th initiations and becoming masters, taking both initiations in one life, 4th and 5th. Was this the case with Master DK? We don't know. And their places are being taken by lesser initiates. There's always this upward current, so to speak, where the lesser fill in the vacated places of the greater. These, in their turn, the lesser initiates, have been training disciples to take their places until, in this process of substitution and replacement, we arrive at the door which symbolically stands between humanity and the hierarchy, and today stands wide open so that accepted disciples are taking initiation, probably the 3rd initiation. Pledged disciples are being accepted, and accepting disciples are taking their pledges. So this is a tremendous movement, and we are shown what it is. And it is important to understand this onward movement in which vacancies are filled, since, as it were, nature abhors a vacuum. Okay. Thus, a great and new movement is proceeding, and a tremendously increased interplay and interaction is taking place. This will go on until AD 2025. We're only 5 years away. And during the years intervening between now and then, very great changes will be seen taking place, and a great general assembly of the hierarchy, held as usual every century in 2025, held as usual in every century in 2025. The date, in all probability, will be set for the first stage of the externalization of the hierarchy. A very, again, important section here. Very important. So, just pause for a moment and get the sense of this movement and how you are part of the movement. A tremendously increased interplay and interaction is taking place, and this will go on until 2025. This was written in the, 1946, roughly? And during the years intervening between now and then, approximately 75, 74 years, very great changes will be seen taking place, and at the great General Assembly of the Hierarchy, held as usual every century, in 2025, the date in all probability will be set for the first stages of the externalization of the hierarchy. So we're all part of this, friends, and we have to, with all possible responsibility, participate as we should. The present cycle from now until that date is called technically the stage of the forerunner, the group John the Baptist. It is preparatory in nature testing in its methods, and intended to be revelatory in its techniques and results. You can see, therefore, that Chohan's masters, initiates, world disciples, maybe of the second degree, perhaps, but usually world disciple means, in the highest estimation, third degree. Disciples and aspirants affiliated with the hierarchy are all at this time passing through a cycle of great activity, and in all this, we are playing our role. Okay, now let's see. This is a long paragraph, but, let me just read it. In the adjustment necessary by the rapidly advancing alignment, the members of the hierarchy are fitting themselves for the objective work of public expression. This is not easy, right? For them, not easy. This entails far more difficulty than you might imagine or anticipate, because it entails the development of that form of resistance to the pull of the lower vibration, of which you can know nothing, for that lower vibration is a necessary aspect of your normal expression, little as you may like to realize this. Well, the masters have to insulate themselves somehow from this problem of dealing with us, reacting to us, and not being affected by the downward drag which we represent to them. You need to realize that there is nothing in the masters or higher initiates which can respond to any vibration of this nature, though they cannot absorb it or react to it or redevelop it again. It can cause them the acutest discomfort and pain. And this is the reason why the Son of God was called in the Old Testament a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. So these are very important statements about why the sorrows of the Christ, and why the sorrows of any true high initiate who has connection with such as we are. I think I make it a little bigger. Fascinating, isn't it? That they have to, in a way, protect themselves from us. This did not in reality refer to his sufferings for poor, miserable humanity, as Orthodox theology so selfishly interprets it, but to the fact that he had to submit himself to contact with humanity, even contact with humanity. And that carried its own sorrow and its own grief. The hierarchy is therefore along all lines, many of which I may not indicate or upon which I may not enlarge, preparing itself for the experience of physical manifestation. It is also endeavoring to create the needed responsive apparatus, which will be of such a nature that members of the hierarchy may function with the minimum of difficulty on earth and will experience the least possible measure of handicap. It's a question of economy, practicality, isn't it? They will thus be enabled to give full time and attention to the work to be done by them in physical manifestation. So this is from their angle, and a rather, in some ways, unpleasant task is presented to them. Well, friends, I haven't, please excuse my my variations here and the difficulties that I've had with this. We have reached page 531. And actually I could continue, but I'd like to keep this somewhat towards the hour. That really I should have accomplished a lot more in this hour. But just a few pages done here. 528 to 531, and this is already the 29th, and it's about 1 hour approximately. And okay, wait a second. And this is, I see what the problem is. 1, 2, 3. Right. So let's see if I can get this properly accomplished. Sorry for the delay, but it makes it that much easier when the next reading occurs. We certainly are getting to understand things from the hierarchical perspective. 1 hour and approximately 3 minutes, and this is going to be number 62 and page 531 to whatever, and this is May 29th. All right. So, there we go. All right. So a little bit of a rocky start here today, but we have Gemini coming up. The Gemini full moon, really 4 days of it, at least, with the 3 themes of love, resurrection, and contact. And then I'll add the pre-full moon, which is astrological, and then Tuya will present the actual full moon. So let's continue, and hopefully all of this came out as it should, even though there have been some rough moments. So lots of love, many blessings, and we'll talk to you soon.